Today's fact: running a corporate sustainability strategy for every organisation is a game changer. So let's get into how. Welcome back to the Corporate Sustainability Education channel, powered by the Southern Sustainability Partnership. Today's topic will be providing you with a practical roadmap to adopting your own corporate sustainability journey. And here to explain how is founder and director of P.Stanley Associates, Philippa Stanley. Now, Philippa's company began a roadmap of their own that enabled everyone within an organisation to be involved, whether you are from an SME or whether you're part of a large multinational. Welcome, Philippa. Really pleased to have you join us today.
Hi, Linda. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you. So, Philippa, before we get into the how, I just wondered if you could just give our listeners a few indications as to why you would agree that adopting a roadmap is a game changer for every organisation.
Wow. Okay. Well, a roadmap, it does what it says, really. It takes you from where you are now through to where you want to be. And then if you split that then into little sort of like mini stops along the way, so you can look back and reflect and then move forwards. That's how you manage to meet your goals and find the greater sustainability within your business.
And for your clients, the end, we're going right to the end before we start at the beginning. For your clients, what do you think are the real differences it makes to them, the early changes that they'll see within their organisation?
Well, for sure, you're going to know more about your organisation. You're going to dig down. You're going to find out a lot more things about where you buy things, how you buy things. You're going to look at the figures. You're going to look at data, and you're going to be able to save money. Once you start to manage things and start to know what you're spending and how you're spending money in your business, that's when you start to look at the savings and you can really drill down. When we've got austerity at the moment for a lot of companies, and that actually brings benefits in itself because you have to look at stuff in a different way, and often that's when you find the truth really of what you're doing and know how you can change that.
That's why we love working within this sector and bringing this information to people, because the benefits are so many, not just the planet, it benefits every business. So this is fantastic information. So that said then, how do you begin to advise your clients? Where do you start when you first go in to see them?
Okay, well, first of all, it's about where you are now. So what are the drivers for you? Why do you want to do this? Is it something that you've been asked to do as part of a supply chain? Is it something that that you want to do because you feel it's the right thing to do? Is it to look at cost? Is it to look at your positioning for your business in terms of marketplace? Because if you look at the wider um, what's happening at the moment is that a lot of companies are looking at things from an ethical point of view. They're actually using that as a market tool, and so that's something that you can use too. So is it something like that that's driving you forward? What is the reason for you doing this? That's the very, very starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I mean, if you don't know why and the reasons, then yeah, it's more difficult to start, obviously. So that said, then, what's if it's not how long's a piece of string, where do you advise them to start first? What's the easy wins that they can make?
Okay, the very first thing is looking at the numbers in terms of monitoring. It depends on what sector you're in. If you're manufacturing or if you're doing loads of miles, then you want to be looking at sort of monitoring fuel use, kilowatt hours, cubic meters of water, all the sort of things, the utility stuff, um, and really getting the handle on what that is. The finance department will be monitoring things on a cost perspective, but sometimes they're not monitoring them on things like the actual energy use that you're using, and splitting that in between gas and energy and electricity, and knowing where you're spending that and what you're spending it on. So that is really the sort of key starting point. And it's looking at getting the figures in a way that is going to be meaningful to your organisation, because it depends what sector you're in, as I said, as to what you're going to use those that baseline data on. And then you want to try and look back then at baseline from maybe a couple of years ago if you've been monitoring for a while, or looking at where you are now, just getting some flavour of where you are.
So if you work in an organisation and this is what you've been tasked to look at, and you might even be the business owner, but if you're not, then you're talking numbers, which speaks everybody's language, really. Are the numbers really how organisations then get to take this forward, just by proving that, our business can benefit immediately by saving money? And that's really the way then that the light bulb starts to go on, and they start to sort of say, right, Philippa's talking our language.
Well, it's often finance department looks after, sort of, they hold the purse strings, so you're trying to win them over at the end of the day. So they like to see where they're going to see what the return on investment is, if there's any investment to be made into things. But there's so much you can do already that doesn't cost anything. But also it's about looking at what you're doing currently. You're probably doing loads, but you're just not realizing that, and it's sort of pulling that all together into one place, and then being able to sort of make that into a plan.
Yeah, we often say to organisations exactly that. If you must be doing something, so why not have a look within your organisation, speak to everybody within it, and then put together your sustainability policy, if you like, your ethos, and then maybe put that onto your website. And actually then it does help you to collate and actually see where your starting point is. And as you quite rightly say, quite a few businesses are actually, they're quite pleased with how far they have already come, which makes it easier, I think, then to get everybody involved with taking that next step. So yes, I think that's a really good point that you make. I'm sure you're doing something. I'm sure there's even a recycling bin somewhere within the organisation, means you've made a start. Perhaps you've adopted LED lighting without really thinking about it being part of sustainability or whatever. So, so when you talked about return on investment there, I used to work myself in the renewable energy sector, and it was always, well, how many years before I see return on this? And sometimes that was the brick wall that stopped it from going any further. Do you find that yourself, that, they're looking at very short-term wins, really, and then maybe that stops it from happening?
Well, the thing is, when you have the baseline to work from, that's where you look where you are now. Then you want to look at where do you want to go, and that's when you start to pull your policies together. When you start to put your goals together, your targets for, maybe you want to save so much energy based on a baseline that you have. But it's having those sort of the sort of immediate wins, by just sort of making sure things are switched off, and that doesn't cost you anything. And then looking at then sort of like more midterm goals, and then looking at the longer term investment. As you say, people want return on investment. So it's about looking at things that you can do right now, things that you can do maybe that will give you return on investment in a year, 2 years, and then things that are more longer term.
Yeah.
I mean, swapping across, a lot of people swap into renewable energy rather than investing into having their own renewable energy. So, I mean, maybe that's something that you could look at, in a short term. So it depends what sector you're in, and what's good for you. But until you know exactly what you've got in your organisation, where you're being asked to measure things, if it's coming from if it's an external driver to your organisation, or whether it's something that's coming from inside the organisation, all those things will help you to look at where you want to go and where you are now. That is the key before you can even start to look at sort of really seriously investing in anything.
Yes, I think the fact that somebody has invited you into their organisation, Philippa, means that, they aren't thinking of their business in the short term. They're looking at a longer term strategy. They're perhaps looking to grow and develop their business. And so I think having an open mind as to how long it will take you to get your return on this investment. Your business is there for the long term. Therefore, you'll reach a point where the effects of what you're doing will have immeasurable benefits for your business financially, and also, on the perception of your company with your clients, your customers, the perception of your company with the people that come on board, and attracting the really good people to your business for your workforce, really.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's any resource, the biggest resource in any organisation is the people, and it's key to get them on board and to help you, because at the end of the day, they are the experts in what they do. They are the experts in their particular area, and often when you ask for their help, um, to come up with ideas of how you can save money, how you can save waste, energy, all the things that cost, they come up with the most fantastic ideas, and you probably haven't even thought of them yourself, but giving them the power to be able to do that, that all helps as part of your plan to move forward. So yeah, they're absolutely key. Get them on board.
I know, Philippa, that we've asked you to come back and talk to us about how you change mindsets within a business. For example, how do you get your team on board? How do you sort of get, maybe if it's not your decision to run this, how do you get people higher up in the business to adopt this? So I'm pleased, because you make a good point there. And I think that it can only really start to move forward when other people within the organisation realise the benefits. It's not just that you're asking them to do extra things than what they were doing before. May not sort of make them warm to it, if you like. But I think getting everybody involved so that they can see the benefits of it. So when you've actually when you've gone into the business for the first time, you've looked at it, what they're doing and what they could be doing. What's the next step for you then? You go away, and what do you provide them with? How does your process work?
Well, as I say, we look at where they end it, where they want to be, and where they want to be in terms of, if it's something that if the driver perhaps is market positioning, then we look at sort of outward facing things. And if it's something which is about more saving money and wanting to do the best thing for the business, then we look sort of more internally at what we can do. So it's about very much tailored to the organisation that I'm working with. So we look at sort of short, medium and long-term goals, and then we start to work on the actual getting people together and start to get the ball rolling. So what really I love about it is the enthusiasm people have for it once they have the engagement, and once they start to feel that they can make a difference, and then they sort of get enthused. They get and when they see things happening, when they see things that's reported and communicated, because communication is a massive thing with this. It's about ensuring that people can celebrate wins, that they know what's happening, that there's a transparency between your targets and how far you are to meet those targets. They really start to come up with some really good stuff, and to say it's giving them the empowerment to do that. And I think the other thing to remember is it's not just about environment, it's about social things as well, and it's about people's well-being. It's about engaging with the community and the people that are around your organisation, engaging with, for a lot of companies, it's about engaging with a charity. So maybe there's things that you can do with your staff that they choose a charity, and then there's things that can happen throughout the year that they can raise money for that charity, and maybe the company then helps and sponsors something, maybe a football kit in the local community or something. So there's all sorts of things that you can do, but it's getting that engagement with your staff and getting them working on your behalf.
It's a really, really good way to bring them on board with you. That's really good. So, Philippa, in an ideal world, then, if you are asked to come in and work with a company, how often do you want them to engage with you? Would be the absolute best scenario for you, and then ultimately you feel for them? You know, is it sort of a monthly meeting, or how is the best way, do you think, that they can assure that it stays on the agenda? It starts on the agenda, it stays there, and the momentum keeps going.
Yeah. Well, there's usually a slot in any senior management team on health and safety. So it's about sort of having health, safety, environment, health, safety, sustainability on that agenda, and then looking at things that are sort of like that are coming up, big decisions. So it sort of stays on the permanent agenda. I'm there to sort of handhold. I'm there to coach and support. I don't come in and do the work for you, because it's got to be an organic thing. It's got to happen within the business itself. So I'm there as much as anybody would want me to be there. So I mean, some organisations just need a nudge and a coach and a direction. Others need a little bit more support. It depends on the size of the organisation and the size of you know what direction you want to go.
Yeah, have you come across a company whereby, you mentioned earlier on about the supply chain and whether that's you know, an issue or concern for them? Have you come across companies where they actually have had maybe a customer contact them and ask them if they have a strategy in place? Is that something that has ever been a concern for a business, and that's why they've made the call?
Absolutely, yes. Increasingly so, actually. I mean, there's lots of sort of sometimes in the construction industry they have sort of certain things, like they want you to meet certain criteria, and there's CHAS and safe contractor and things, and you have to provide them with policies and ideas about, you know, sometimes reporting sort of things into this sort of portals and stuff, and that's sort of like a formal process. Other times it's requests for policies, particularly if it's someone's tendering for new work, and they're asked for sustainability policies, they're asked for environmental policies, and they're sort of like, oh, how, you know, can you help me with that? And then that starts the ball rolling when they realise then that, you know, we can set objectives and targets and really start to get into this a bit more. So that's often a good starting point. And again, that's one of the drivers. That's an external driver that you've been asked to provide assistance with. And again, sometimes it's carbon reporting, particularly if you're in a manufacturing situation and or perhaps you're delivering something on behalf of a larger organisation. They want to know what their carbon footprint is, and obviously that comes out into people in their supply chain. So you know, you're asked to sort of like provide information back to them so they can capture that. So it really does depend, but yes, that is often the first starting point.
Yes, and you mention in the construction industry, but I mean, I think it's applicable to lots of different industry sectors. If you want to, maybe you're not going for tender work at the moment, but you want to grow your business and develop it, and maybe going out, you know, responding to a tender that's out there is something that you'd like to aspire to doing in the future. Um, is sustainability something that is on the tender process now? It must be, you know, I feel it probably is increasingly.
Yes, I think it's pretty much up there with you know, your health and safety and you know, quality. I mean, often companies have quality policies and things first. They certainly will have health and safety if they've got more than 5 employees, but it's, you know, they'll have health and safety things within their business because they have to do it through law. But often it's something with quality policies as well. You know, you can actually work so well with quality if you've already got that, but you haven't looked at sustainability and environment. Because if you think about quality, you make something right first time, then you are reducing the footprint on the environment anyway. So the things just merging together. And similarly with health and safety, you have a duty as an employer to make sure that your staff welfare is looked after, and that they're not stressed and things. So their well-being is up there. So, and sustainability encompasses staff well-being, because it's about people at the end of the day. It's people, your governance and the environment all coming together as one.
Yeah, and when you actually, you bring up the part about your people, the people that we've worked with that have within maybe larger organisations where they do employ people for corporate sustainability, that is their job role within the company. Not every business is big enough to have that luxury, of course, which is why consultants like you are so absolutely vital. But the need to actually adopt that strategy with their own people is often then put onto this person within the organization. Suddenly the responsibility of the well-being of individuals is put into their realm, which is quite new for them. But of course it is vital today. And I think with millennials certainly, and with people coming through, that side of a business is becoming more important as well. So I think, as you rightly say, to adopt the whole thing under the same banner. Equally, we found that people that might have been in the health and safety side of the business had the sustainability side put onto their role as well. So this is a growing and developing role that is really important within an organisation. But would you say though that as well that it really starts at the top? Because if you've got that mindset at the top of a company, then obviously it does ripple down to the whole organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, the senior management, they determine the direction of the business or the organisation. It doesn't have to be a business. Sustainability fits into any type of organisation, but yeah, they have to sort of set where they want to go. But then often you'll find that the direction set, but there may be a bit of a gap. Then it's sort of given to somebody within the organisation to sort of like make it all happen. But it's very hard for one person to make it happen by themselves, because the whole thing comes together. It's a complete sort of, it becomes the DNA of the organisation as putting sustainability in, because it touches absolutely everything. And when you bring that all together, that's when the magic starts to happen, and so many things get connected that perhaps weren't in the past. Often people work in sort of like silos and of information, but then when you start to open that up and look at how you can create more sustainable way of working and thinking, then things start to happen. And like the pandemic we've had, lots of people starting to work from home. That's had a huge impact on how people's businesses are working, in terms of people not travelling in and out of work, and not having to sort of host lots of people in an office situation, because people are working at home, and obviously they've got the flexibility. So going forwards, that's sort of like an opportunity then to look at how you're going to work when we get back to our new normal. Are people going to have more flexibility in terms of working from home and having the opportunity to do that? And maybe you don't need such a big space anymore. Maybe you can look at hot desking. There's all sorts of things which then start to come into play just by looking at things from a different perspective.
I'm so pleased you made that point, Philippa, about the DNA of a business, because I think that's something that we see every day. And I think we like to call it the snowball effect, because once you start something like this, the snowball rolls and rolls, and it gets bigger with every benefit that an organization sees that it brings, and it does bring. It just grows and grows. And I think you said it really well there, where you said the DNA of a business. So when you when you work with companies, have you ever had them say that they have started to see changes in the way their customers look at them, or their staff look at them, if they've started to get out there and actually share what they're doing? Have you seen a sort of a light bulb moment where they've realized that how they're seen and being viewed is different now?
I think that happens quite a lot, actually. It's one of those effects that you don't necessarily notice, but until you step back. I always recommend that people look back and do like a reflection on where they were. And on my website there is a thing where you can actually, it's like a reflection on 2020 going back the last 10 years. because we've come such a long way in 10 years. I mean, you may not have been in business that long, but if you look at sort of like, just reflect back as to where you were when you started this journey and then where you are now, and then celebrate that, because there's so much has changed. And if you can look at that over the past year and just see how you've done and look at it going forwards, then you start to see how things have changed in the organisation, excuse me, changed in people's way, the way people are thinking, the way that that they're starting to ask others within the organisation. That is often the sort of thing that you notice, and I find I tend to notice, because I sort of go into an organisation and then step out again and then step back in again, and then sometimes you realise, oh gosh, that that suddenly happened, that that process of people coming, sort of like cross-sector things happening and projects starting to work, because people start to see the benefit of working with other departments and things on projects. And then that's when things really sort of start to tip over the edge, and you sort of breach that sort of old way of working and looking at embracing that new way of doing things. So change, sort of like it's inevitable, but it's change often for the better. But then that rubs off on the people within the organisation. Like they feel better about being able to have the opportunity to bring their special their special passion into what they do, because they've seen a change happen. They've been part of that change, and I mean, I don't got any figures for it, but I know attrition rates is something that is very difficult to measure in an organisation. It's a huge cost sometimes, but it's unseen. It's not on any spreadsheets anywhere. But things like that, when people feel better about coming to work, how they feel being in the workplace, is when they start to sort of be more productive and just be able to sort of like get things done differently. So yeah, it might not be hugely noticeable to start with, but it's sort of like something that grows.
I think you've built a picture there of another reason why it is vital to work with a consultant from outside of your business, because it's very easy when you are doing the day job. I mean, you're there to run your business, and often you don't see how well you're doing. You don't really see exactly everything coming together. It's somebody from outside the organization that can see that, which is very important, of course, and also motivates people to do more when somebody's telling them, crikey, look how far you've come. So would you, as my last question to Philippa, would you say you're doing all this great stuff, don't keep it a secret, shout about it, because it's going to be the game changer for your business, is to tell people what you're doing as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really encourage people to celebrate their wins, because it's about making people feel good. It's about, there's so much in the world about being happy and and sort of making yourself feel better. It's great for well-being, but yes, selling it to other people and telling people the story. You only have to look at adverts over the Christmas period, and it's all been about, we've given this to this charity, we've done that. People are saying things now, and sort of like coming out, and just it's starting to be, we're about caring, we're about sharing. I think that the year we've had, people have come together, and we've supported people, we've supported each other. So what we can do with the planet and support the planet, and how look at where we are and how we interact with that. And yes, absolutely tell people about it, because people are looking more and more for ethical ways of doing business. They're looking at things, how they're spending their money, and they want to spend their money, support things that feels good to them. So unless you tell them about it, then they're not going to be able to find you. So yes, absolutely tell them, even if it's just on an email footer. If you're not going to sort of like advertise on television, you just tell people what you're doing. Yeah.
Good old-fashioned power of the word.
Yes.
Thank you, Philippa, very much for joining us. That's been completely insightful, and I hope it's motivated our listeners to start their own journey, their own roadmap, and to develop one if they're already on their journey. We will be including to the right of this video, there will be a link to Philippa's website, so you can find out more about what they're doing as a company. And we were also delighted that Philippa has agreed to join us again, and we will be listing the topics that she will be covering. So the Game Changer will keep going with all the different insights that she has to offer. But thank you very much again, Philippa, and we'll see you in the next one.
Pleasure. Thank